Welcome back to I Want That Too, the podcast where Disney merch meets Disney history. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely Lauren Hersey, who, because you've been eating falafel all day.
Meat pies, Jim, meat pies.
Meat pies, okay. So, and you were nowhere near Mrs. Lovett when this was going on, right? You know, all right, some people will get the Sweeney Todd joke. But anyway, please explain where you were earlier today.
Yeah, we just rolled back in from the Lebanese festival in Wheeling, West Virginia. We were there supporting a neighbor who was in the Our Lady of Lebanon dance troupe, and it was lovely. I've never been to a Lebanese festival before, but I feel like now I want to know more. And
since we're discussing food items, just yesterday, I've been driving by in our teeny tiny town of New Boston, New Hampshire. Literally, the pizza place in town has been advertising that on Saturday mornings they're going to bake cinnamon bread, and I finally decided, okay, I will do this. And it was the exact experience that you wanted, Lauren. I showed up, I gave them my money, they said, come back at 1:00, we'll have gotten them out of the oven and they'll be cooling and you can take it home then. And literally they handed me a blazing hot thing of bread wrapped in tinfoil, which as I walked in, Nancy said, is it fresh? And I handed it to her and she burned her hand. So, very tasty.
I think that, I don't know about you, because we're recording this on a Sunday, but, if I was able to, eat my way through the weekend, maybe do something fun and watch some TV, I'm fulfilled. That's all I need is, some hot bread, a meat pie, and, I'm happy being here with you. That's just fine with me.
The one addendum I will add to that is when I finish my work day, and we're knocking out 2 shows, and then I immediately pivot to working with Drew on a fine tuning. My reward is that tonight they run, the season finale of season 3 of The Gilded Age.
So, I've been watching that. Okay, so we are going to go down this rabbit hole, and we do not need to for our merch listeners here. But offline, we will talk about the Gilded Age. Back to the show, though. Today it's jam-packed. We are talking about Disney's investor call, the news that just dropped for streaming. There is a new Disney adult dating app. Yes, that is true, and I'm going to tell you all about it. And then I swore I would stop talking about Labubus, but it's not happening today. Sorry, folks, because Disney has entered the chat here, and they have come to the table with their version of a Labubu. So we're going to talk about that. And we have a very, very, very special treat, I think, because Jim is going to be sharing his origin story, how he got involved with Disney, and it all started with a duck.
All right, but before we do that, we have to acknowledge our sponsor. And of course, this episode of I Want That Too is brought to you by our friends at unlockmagic.com, the same trusted team behind DVC Rental Store and DVC Resale Market. So if you're planning a Disney trip, they've got the best deals on Walt Disney World tickets, including the lowest price on party tickets to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, and even Jollywood Nights, which, by the way, Len Testa says never happens. So this is kind of cool. They've got this going on at unlockmagic.com. So whether it's your big family vacation or a quick weekend getaway, visit unlockmagic.com to grab the best ticket deals and make your next Disney trip just a little more magical. Okay, so, all right, we had our quarterly earnings call earlier this week. Did you actually listen in real time, or did you look at this after the fact?
I looked at it after the fact for this one because, I'm extra interested in what's happening, financially with the Disney company, largely with Epic. We didn't get Dubai for this one. So it wasn't that wait, don't worry about Epic, look over here type of moment. But there was some interesting news that came out of the call, and I'm looking specifically at streaming. So for the first time ever, their direct-to-consumer business, which includes Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, it is actually actually profitable. And we're talking $346 million in operating income this quarter alone, which is a huge turnaround from the losses that we've seen in past years, especially during like the Chapek era. Remember all that?
Oh, absolutely. And to be specific here, this is a big shift from the, again, during the Chapek era, it was grow at all costs to now it's let's make some money at this.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is the Bob Iger way. And, I mean, it was a smart play bringing him back because, I mean, streaming, I believe, could have put the Disney company, at least for that side, under if they didn't get a handle on it with the Hulu deal that they did. It doesn't matter, though. But they've raised their full-year streaming forecast to $1.3 billion in operating income. And that is actually up from their previous projection of $1 billion. So it's heading in the right direction. But the news that we got out of it is that, Hulu is fully merging into Disney Plus in 2026. So everything will be in one place. We can talk for days probably about the ESPN streaming service and how that is, relaunching and their deal with the NFL network. So there's a lot going on in the streaming space.
Oh, absolutely. And it's intriguing because, face it, we have been in a cord-cutting era, and the notion that they're making this deal with the NFL and WWE, by the way. In fact, I immediately thought of your husband when I saw, that came over the transom. So just kind of interesting that, going forward, subscribers are going to have a lot more options without necessarily, and this is the kick here, folks, that without having to juggle multiple logins.
Which is really, really nice. I mean, and this is a content play. I mean, that's the deal with WWE. That's the deal with the NFL network. That is what we're looking at is they need the content. It's cheaper to buy it than to create it themselves. So, but the interesting twist, I walked away from this is that Disney is going to stop reporting their subscriber counts. So they're going the Netflix way.
I was about to bring that up, that Netflix moved this info behind the steel door as well a while ago. So it's just sort of like, well, if they can do it, we can do it.
Yeah, and I mean, like Bob Iger and the CFO, they're basically saying that the subscriber numbers don't reflect like the whole picture anymore. So they're going to be sharing, the revenue and retention instead of subscriber counts, which when they put that information behind closed doors, it makes it hard for negotiating contracts. It makes it hard for the talent as a part of the content on the streaming platforms. But if that is the industry standard, I can see why they would want to do that.
And I guess this makes sense. I mean, if you keep the subscribers you have and you make more money per customer, I mean, you don't have to chase raw numbers just to impress Wall Street. But that said, I mean, and I complained about this previously, the metrics for streaming make absolutely no sense to me. Just the notion of, for example, Bluey's the biggest success in the entire history of media. It's like, really? Yes, it's been watched 1 billion minutes. What does that mean? A billion minutes. I'm a whiny baby
I mean,
man.
it's way harder, because the space has been so fragmented now to even compare apples to apples when you're looking at streaming versus traditional. But one thing that we know it boils down to is keeping subscribers happy. And this is really important to Disney, just the way, when they're sending all those surveys out after you've been to the parks, they're trying to gauge your intent to return. So in order to keep streaming profitable, they have to keep subscribers happy. And this is something that, Disney has a leg up on because of the theme parks. So something that they have created that I don't know if you even knew about to keep subscribers happy is, did you know that there is a exclusive subscriber only site for Disney Plus subscribers? It's perks.disneyplus.com. Did you know about this?
I did not. Okay, so talk to me. What do I get? Or am I about to get mad because I'm already paying for some of this stuff?
Okay, so I was so excited about this because I didn't know it existed until recently. But currently, the biggest thing is, let me get to it. There are currently 16 perks. But the biggest one right now, and I think this goes 14th, 15th of August, you can get a free D23 Gold membership. Just by subscribing to Disney Plus, which this is the digital membership. If you go on D23 website right now and buy it, it is $49.99. And so just doing it through here, you get the digital membership, you get access to all of the gold member events, the offers and discounts, you get the digital edition of the D23 publication, the newsletter, like you get all the things if you are a Disney Plus member. And I'm assuming this is for the Disneyland 70th celebration.
Hey, well, I mean, some of this, let's be honest, D23, when it was created back in 2009, the whole point was it was an affinity organization. The notion of we're reaching out to Disney super fans and looping them into all of the projects, the films, the TV shows, the stuff that's going on at the park. So broadening the vision for D23. So now it's also the people who subscribe to Disney Plus. I guess I can see that happening, but at the same time, I keep getting this annual charge to renew my D23 membership. I want to say, Nate's had to do the Family Gold, which I think is $139.
Yes, it is.
All right.
We just canceled ours just in time to be able to get it for free through Disney Plus.
Okay, so I just have to wonder, should I do the same thing? Because to be honest, one of the things that's absolutely made me crazy about how D23 has been mutating just this year, they stopped, as part of your membership, sending the physical copy of the D23 magazine, which again, because I use those things for my research, I like to have a physical copy. And, and this is the thing, I have tried now for over, it's 8 months at this point, because they say, just go to the disneystore.com and you're a D23 member and you can order a physical copy. And I have never been able to complete the transaction because evidently my Disney Visa doesn't talk to my D23 membership. So, and now the notion for, great, now another thing, my D23, or excuse me, my Disney Plus membership, which will now not talk to my D23 or my Visa, so I'll end up doing what I'm doing now anyway, Lauren, which is going every 3 months over to eBay and buying a physical copy of the magazine from somebody who's smarter than I am.
Disney, if you're listening, get this man a physical copy. But I do miss it. I do definitely miss getting the physical copy. But if you do this free membership for $49.99, you will get the digital copy. They also are doing a sweepstakes right now. It is you have a chance to win a 3-night vacation for 4 to go celebrate Disneyland's 70th anniversary. And that includes your airfare, which, a lot of times they're like, yeah, we'll give you the tickets, we'll give you the room, but you're on your own. This one also had a VIP resort tour, an $800 Disney gift card. So it is a pretty good sweepstakes if you want to get in and, try your luck there.
Okay. Okay. Again, if I can figure out how to actually access my Disney Plus. Anyway, what else? What else am I getting?
Yeah, so there's a lot of discounts, just like you see with everyone else. We got some free trials, like, DoorDash, Dash Pass, like for 6 months, or, 3 months of Clear Plus for the airport, Kroger Boost, all that kind of stuff. And right now they have, through August 14th, they're promoting Freakier Friday. So they have another sweepstakes to win a collectible Freakier Friday snack set. So I highly recommend, if you are a Disney Plus subscriber, in addition to like all the hotel discounts and stuff with the parks, to check out the site. Again, it's perks.disneyplus.com. Just log in using your My Disney Experience credentials.
Okay. So intriguing. Also intriguing was what you mentioned earlier on in today's intro. There's now a Disney adult dating app.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I actually saw this one while I was down in the parks, and like I had to bookmark it to come back to talk about, on the show. But this dating app is called Single Riders. It's currently in development for Disney and theme park fans. So what happened was this guy, Joe the Bearded Nerd, on TikTok, if you're looking for him, he was supposed to have a date and got stood up. And so, Disney adults do what they do. And, he went to the parks solo and thought like there should be an app for this. So I like the idea here. And it's not just for romantic connections. It's also to find more Disney friends, because like if you're really into Disney, sometimes it is difficult to find other people that share that, same level of enthusiasm. And so that's really kind of where this app comes in. So they are looking at rolling out, they're in beta testing right now, but the launch of the app is planned later in 2025. So we'll have to keep an eye on this.
Okay. And I just want to share a little story here. Nancy and I actually met at a fan convention in Boston. I want to say this was 96. And, I was there working a table for my friend Bill Davidson. And she went home and said, I met this really nice guy at the event, but he's married and it wouldn't work. And so jump ahead 8 months. And I'm now in the process of getting divorced. I'm back up in Massachusetts. I'm at a fan event in Natick, Massachusetts, and Nancy's there. And, it was one of these things where it's like, you, the guy, and it's like, you, the lady. And I literally said, you're coming to dinner. And it's like, no, that's it. She says, he would not leave me alone. Just sort of, you, come with me. So don't get me wrong. Single writer, a great idea. But also, if you're looking for people who love the things you love, look for the places you go to do the things that you love. So
yes, 100%. And I always love hearing your stories. And like, I don't know if we're like what level of Disney adult we are, because I just started AJ Wolf's book, and I feel like there's like criteria, but we would probably be in that classification somewhere. So if you've not checked out her book, I encourage you to do that too. So something other, adults like to do, probably listening to this podcast, is collecting. And we've talked about the Labubus. And this week, Disney entered the party here, trying to capitalize on the trend, I believe. So these little guys, I put a picture here for you, Jim. They are called Rupoka-chan. Rupoka-chan? How do you think you'd say that word?
I would, let's be honest here, I would say it badly. So we're going with what you just said.
Okay, so they came out with their own little adorable collectible line. And so these actually, we've talked about it before. They were developed by the Disney Store Japan, and they recently just made their North American debut on the DisneyStore.com. So they were originally released in Japan earlier in the summer. And to give you kind of a visual here, paint the picture, we're talking like palm-sized. These are chubby. They have like teary-eyed, characters. And they also come with the clip for the bag, just like the Labubu's no scary teeth or mischievous look. I don't even think they have mouths looking at them. And so they're a lot less creepy than the Labubu's, but these are the clippables. So first drop was Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, Stitch, and Angel. And then with the latest update, they added Dale, Pluto, Goofy, Winnie the Pooh, and Piglet and Tigger. And I think that's what you're seeing the picture of here. Go on the Disney Store. They're so cute.
They are very cute. And also just want to share a piece of info that I got handed recently. I wasn't aware of this, but evidently next year is the 100th anniversary of Pooh. And evidently, the Disney company fully intends to take advantage of this. So these cute little teary-eyed Winnie the Poohs that come from Japan are literally the first things in over the transom. We should anticipate that 2026, there's a tidal wave of Winnie the Pooh stuff headed our way. So
we'll keep an eye on that, because I do feel like I've seen more Pooh, and I'm for it. I think Pooh's so cute.
Okay.
But going back to these, I did find the name meaning. I don't even know where I grabbed this, but these are definitely different than the Lububu. So the Ru is teary-eyed, Poka is chubby, Chan is affectionate, cute suffix in Japanese. So it's like that cute culture stuff. And what's interesting about these is they're priced at $17, where you're looking at $30 to $50 for Labubus. And so I think that this $17 price point should get, it opens the door for collecting, because it's, appropriately priced in my, opinion.
Oh, and by the way, as soon as we finish up here today, I'm going to get my business cards, revised so they read, "You're a Poka Jim Hill," because teary-eyed and chubby is how I start most mornings. Okay,
I'm right there with you, buddy. All right, so that is that. And after the break, what are you going to talk about, Jim?
How I wound up with this job.
Yay! I begged him for this one. So you guys are in for a real treat. So stay tuned.
This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Summer's almost out and fall's calling. Luckily, Nordstrom has everything you need for the season ahead, all under $100. Discover new arrivals from your favorite brands like Mango, Princess Polly, Wave, Free People, BDG, and more. Whether you're planning a last-minute getaway, heading back to class, or refreshing your office looks, you'll find the latest trends and beauty must-haves without breaking your budget. It's easy, too, with free shipping, free returns, and in-store order pickup. Shop today, in stores, and at Nordstrom.com.
This episode is brought to you by Espolón Tequila. Slow, sticky, snoozy. They call these the dog days of summer. But Espolón? They don't do boring. Welcome to the Marg Days. Espolón Tequila. 100% blue Weber agave, born to shake up your summer. Just add lime, agave, and a little attitude. Visit espolontequila.com. Espolón Tequila, 40% alcohol, volume 80 proof. Copyright 2025, Campari America, New York, New York. Drink responsibly.
Hellmann's believes they can turn any mayo hater into a lover. So, if you know someone who thinks mayo equals bland, show their taste buds the truth and challenge them to try Hellmann's flavored mayo. With irresistible flavors like Hellmann's spicy mayo, garlic aioli, chipotle, and Italian herb, they'll be eating their words. Challenge haters to try Hellmann's flavored mayo and get them to eat their words. Learn more at hellmanns.com/eatyourwords.
And we're back. Okay, folks. I don't know how many of you who listen to I Want That Too also listen to the Epic Universal podcast, which I also do with Lauren's lovely husband, Eric Hersey. And just last week, we did an interview with Brian Krosnick. He's the park lore guy. And I got on the heels of, this interview with Brian, I got a lot of nice emails, and one of them came in from Dale Ladner, who then went on to say, thanks for this week's interview with Brian Krosnick. As someone who's been reading park lore for a year or so now, I enjoyed learning about Brian's background, how he got to be good at what he does. Mind you, I have the same questions for you, Jim. How did you get good at what you do? Maybe someday you could do a story about that. Dale, thank you for the kind words. And as Lauren mentioned, I shared this story with her a while back, and she's been bugging me to share this. And well, look, the short version of this story is, look, I'm a guy in his mid-60s, and I have no discernible adult skills. I mean, mind you, I can tell you when the Viewliner, the Train of Tomorrow, when that was in service at Disneyland, Tomorrowland attraction, opened June of 57, carried its last passenger September the following year, 58, which makes the Viewliner one of the shortest-lived attractions at Walt's Family Fun Park. Only open for 15 months. Only the Phantom Boats, which some of you may know as the Tomorrowland Boats, was a more short-lived Tomorrowland attraction. That opened July of 55, closed August the following year. Walt got tired of them overheating and leaving guests stranded in the middle of Tomorrowland Lagoon. So he sent the Phantom Boats off to the Phantom Zone, never to be seen again. So, again, the fact that I know that the Viewliner was only in operation 15 months and then the Phantom Boats were only up for a year and a month, I have, what is it that Liam Neeson says in the Taken movies? I have a particular set of skills that I've acquired over a very long career. Unfortunately, this is not math. This is not science. This is economics. I spent my time, Lauren, studying everything I could get my hands on in regard to the Walt Disney Company. Now, that said, I grew up in the Paleozoic era of Disneyana, the late 60s, early 70s, when, Lauren, I am not lying, there were 5 books. All right, that's it. There was Bob Thomas's The Art of Animation. This was the book that came out in 58 with the theatrical release of Snow White. There was Richard Schickel's The Disney version. Came out in 68, 2 years after Walt died. It's a really well-researched book, but it's also one that clearly has an agenda. Mr. Schickel is not a fan of the Disney Company. There was then Christopher Finch's The Art of Walt Disney, came out in 73, giant coffee table book put out there by Abrams as part of the company's 50th anniversary celebration. Then there was Leonard Maltin's Disney film, also came out in 73. And finally, there was Bob Thomas's Walt Disney America Original. This is published in 76. It's the company's authorized biography of Walt, so it's not exactly full of negative stories about kindly old Uncle Walt. But anyway, this is what I had when I started studying Disneyana. These 5 books, but I ran front to back. I memorized all of the weird little bits of Disney trivia and info that these books imparted. So, okay, we now jump ahead 8 years. It's the late winter, early spring of 1984, and I am now in the U.S. Army. To be specific, I'm stationed at Fort Devens, Massachusetts, where I'm now working as a reporter for the base newspaper, the Devens Dispatch. One afternoon, phone on my desk rings. And it's Emily Seabird, a bright young lady who I met when we were both studying at the Defense Information School previous year. This was the school located at Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indiana, where I trained to be a 71Q. By the way, that's actual official military talk for an Army-trained journalist, 71Q. Anyway, Emily wound up being stationed clear on the other side of the country. Fort Ord, teeny, tiny, itty-bitty military base, built at the edge of the Pacific Ocean along Monterey Bay back in 1940, just before World War II starts. And anyway, Emily calls me at work one afternoon, and she starts off by saying, when we were at school together, you told a lot of stories about the Walt Disney Company. Way too many, to be honest. But I was wondering if you know anything about Donald Duck. I share what I knew about that bad-tempered waterfowl, some of which, by the way, we discussed on last week's I Want That Too. How Donald made his debut, May of 34, in a silly symphony, Wise Little Hen. He rises to the ranks of the Mouse House, gets his own series by January of 37. And by the time the 40s roll around, Donald, for a time anyway, even manages to eclipse Mickey Mouse. He becomes the most popular cartoon star at Disney Studios. And Emily goes on to say, yeah, it's those animated shorts that Donald made during the 40s that I want to talk to you about. He made a bunch of cartoons during World War II where he played a soldier, right? Would you know the name of any of those? Now, I want to stress here, folks, this is decades before there's a Google. More to the point, because I'm currently stationed in the Army, all of my Disney reference books are packed away. They're in storage. But that said, I do know someone who can absolutely answer Emily's question, and that is Dave Smith, the head archivist of the Walt Disney Company. So I tell Ms. Siebert, I'll call you back. And the next thing you know, I've reached out to the switchboard at Disney Studios in Burbank. And a few minutes later, I am talking directly with Dave Smith, who could not have been nicer. So I pass along Emily's question, and Dave puts me on hold for a moment, and then he picks up the phone and goes, yeah, Donald Duck, he starred in 6 different military-themed cartoons back in World War II. There was Donald Gets Drafted, that went to theaters, May of 42. There was The Vanishing Private, that came out in September that same year. Sky Trooper, which again came out in 42, November of that year. Then there was Fall In, Fall Out, that was some 6 months after that, April of 43. The Old Army Game, 7 months after that, November of 43. And then finally, Commando Duck, which makes its big screen debut in June of 44. So I thank Dave Smith. I hang up. I call Emily back. And after she hears what I have to say, Miss Siebert then says, okay, so we now know that Donald got drafted into the Army, May of 1942. Did Disney ever produce a cartoon that then showed Donald leaving military service? I didn't have an answer to that question. So once again, I hang up on Emily. I call the switchboard at Disney Studios. A few minutes later, I'm back on the phone with Dave Smith.
Remember me?
It's like, yeah, hi, I'm that annoying, military guy. And now I ask Emily's question about whether Disney ever produced a cartoon where Donald Duck left military service. Now, to give Dave Smith credit, the head archivist of the Walt Disney Company didn't immediately dismiss my question. If anything, David got a little quiet and thoughtful and said, it may take me a few days to get you a definitive answer to this question. What's your number? I'm going to have to call you back. And sure enough, 3 days later, after a very long weekend, Dave calls me back, and he explains that he spent days digging through old Donald Duck comic books and newspaper comic strips that featured the same character from particularly from the 40s, just to be sure outside of the animated shorts that the studio produced that the company hadn't published something somewhere that then indicated that Donald Duck, after serving in the Army during World War II, had been mustered out of military service. And he said, I've looked everywhere. And near as I can figure, Jim, Commando Duck, the short that was released at theaters in June of 44, that was the last time Donald appeared in uniform. And given that the war was winding down at this point, I mean, VE Day, the victory in Europe, that was May 8th in 45, and VJ Day, that's victory in Japan, that was September 2nd of the same year, 45. So maybe Walt just decided that, Americans were getting tired of seeing Donald in an army uniform, which is why they then put this cartoon character back in his sailor suit and then had him play a civilian again. So if you buy into this theory, Donald Duck's first official cartoon after he left military service and became a civilian again was The Plastics Inventor, which was released in theaters in September of 1944. So I thank Dave Smith for all his hard work, and then I reach out to Emily, and I explain everything that David just told me. And this is when Miss Siebert gets really, really excited. She says, I need you to make one more call to the Disney company, and I need you to ask them a very specific question. And that question is, would the Walt Disney Company like to have Donald Duck finally retire from the U.S. military? And I'll get to why Miss Siebert was asking me that question in a moment. But first, this. And we're back. Okay, just to recap, it's a late winter, early spring of 1984, and my old buddy from the Defense Information School, Emily Siebert, has just asked me a very specific question, which is, would the Walt Disney Company like to see Donald Duck finally retire from the U.S. military? And the reason that Emily is asking me this question, well, I mentioned earlier in today's feature that she's stationed at Fort Ord out in California, which is the teeny tiny military base at the edge of the Pacific along Monterey Bay. And Miss Siebert works in Fort Ord's public affairs office, and she has a base commander who really, really likes to see his name in the paper. And this base commander, he has heard about this year-long celebration of Donald Duck's 50th birthday that the Walt Disney Company has planned for 1984. And this guy thinks, how can I use this to get my name in the paper? So this is when the space commander hatches a scheme to give Donald Duck a full-blown military retirement ceremony. Lauren, we're talking about an appearance with the U.S. Army Band, a parade where 1,000 troops will pass in review. Not only that, but Donald will be presented with an official certificate honoring his time in uniform. So I pass along Emily's final question to Dave Smith, and he in turn passes this base commander's idea along to the higher-ups at the Mouse House, who evidently flat out love this idea. Okay, so now, May 19th, 1984, on Armed Forces Day, no less, the streets of Torrance, California are lined with thousands of people who then watch as Donald Duck, in a World War II era uniform, rolls by in an open car from the 1940s, accompanied by his best girl, Daisy, and in cars directly behind him, also from the 1940s, there's Donald's nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, not to mention his two uncles, Scrooge McDuck and Ludwig von Drake. And again, there's the 1,000 troops marching that I mentioned earlier, and the U.S. Army Band, not to mention Lieutenant General Arthur E. Brown, Jr., who, Lauren, is a really for real 4-star general, the director of the U.S. Army Staff, no less, who, prior to presenting Donald with that official frame certificate, which first acknowledges his time in uniform and then retires Donald with full honors, he then promotes the duck to the rank of E5, which, by the way, for those of you who don't understand,
I don't.
Okay, this means when Donald retired from the Army, he did so at the rank of Buck Sergeant. So, which means that his official title prior to leaving the service is Buck Sergeant Donald Fauntleroy Duck. And just want to stress here, folks, yes, this elaborate ceremony, every single bit of it is your tax dollar at work, okay? Right there, okay? You can talk about your $700 hammers, but this was impressive. Okay. By the way, if you actually want to see some footage of this parade and the retirement ceremony, head on over to YouTube, where you can fire up one of the copies of Donald Duck's 50th birthday TV special, which CBS, by the way, put on the air November 13th, 1984, and by the way, hosted by Disney legend Dick Van Dyke. You want to tune in to the 35-minute mark, roughly around there, where you will see some actual shots of the parade, not to mention Lieutenant General Brown officially promoting Donald to the rank of Buck Sergeant. So anyway, how does any of this have anything to do with Dale Ladner's question about how I got good at what I do for a living these days, which was, by the way, is to tell long, pointless stories about the Walt Disney Company. Okay, now remember that this whole thing is set in motion by the base commander, Fort Ord, out in California, who, more than anything in the world, loves to see his name in the newspaper. All right, so after this military parade and retirement ceremony in Torrance, California, again, May of 1984, Emily writes a story about what happened, and a few newspapers around Fort Ord then reprint this piece, which, of course, thrills Miss Siebert's boss, who, again, base commander, teeny tiny little World War II era base, the edge of the Pacific. Emily, as a courtesy, sends me a copy of this same article. And after I read it, I call Miss Siebert back and say, hey, can I write a version of this same story for my base newspaper, the Devon Dispatch? And Emily's like, oh, God, of course, because that then means that her boss's name will now be in another newspaper, one clear on the other side of the country. So, which he will immediately cut out and put in his scrapbook. And by the way, that's Emily's one condition for me writing my own version of the Donald Duck retiring story. That somewhere in it, I have to mention her base commander's name. So I write this story, which I guess must have been okay because the Associated Press grabs it and then makes it available through their wire service to newspapers around the globe to reprint. And I think in the end, Lauren, my version of this story wound up being published in more than 400 newspapers around the world. And so, of course, Emily's base commander loses his mind. All right,
All his wildest dreams just came true.
No, that's it exactly. He's mentioned in newspapers around the globe. He actually has to buy an extra scrapbook for all of the versions of this in different languages and all that. But for me, what this does is it puts me on Disney's PR radar. And in fact, sometime after this story ran, John McClintock, who was in charge of the marketing team at Disneyland Park at the time, reaches out directly to me and says, hey, we really liked what you did with that Donald Duck story. By the way, we're celebrating Disneyland's 30th next summer. Would you be interested in coming out and maybe covering that event? If so, we'll be happy to issue a credential. And that, my friends, is how I actually got started doing what I do today. I mean, look, it was at that media event where I got to meet veteran Imagineers like Mark Davis and John Hench and Herbie Ryman, not to mention animation legends like Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnston, and Ward Kimball. And you have to understand, this is the early days of Disney fandom. And because, again, I'd religiously studied those 5 Disney reference books, I recognized these Disney veterans on sight. And, at the media event, I politely walked up and introduced myself and explained I was a longtime fan of their work, and more to the point, I could, when they said, well, what have I done? And, well, you're Mark Davis, you did Pirates of the Caribbean, and you did Haunted Mansion, and you're John Hench, and you did, the Plaza Inn at the end of the street here. And that was the thing, Lori, these guys, when they heard that, they opened like flowers. And they were quick to say, oh, well, nice, polite little army man. You need to come by WED and visit me in my office. Or I tell you what, let me know when you can come by the studio and I'll arrange for a walk-on pass. And you better believe I took these guys up on all of them, up on their very kind invitations. And it was that media event, the Disneyland's 30th, that effectively kicked open the door to the career I have today, all because I picked up the phone one afternoon and then answered a friend's question about Donald Duck. And all right, bring this to a close, folks. Here, moral of the story is, You just never know when and where your big break is going to come from. But until it does, be kind. Help everyone you can. Because you never know when that little bit of good karma that you send swirling out into the world will then come rolling back at you and bring you everything that you've ever wanted and more. And okay, so that's my far too long answer to Dale's question. And
one of my favorite stories.
Okay, now on a future installment of I Want That Too, Lauren is going to tell us how she got good at what she does, which, for those of you who don't know, Lauren's day job is that you're the director of corporate communication at Nexstar Media Group, right?
That's true.
Which, again, is a really, for real, grown-up job out there in big-time corporate America. Whereas me, I sit at my dining room table, and when I'm not scooping cat poop, I write stories about cartoon ducks, which I then record on a rickety microphone stand that hums too much, and then send these things out into the world in podcast form. Which may not be the best paying or the most important job in the world, but it is definitely fun. Plus, I get to meet and talk with nice folks like, Lauren Hersey and Dale Ladner, and that's tough to beat.
Well, Jim, you made my life. Thank you for sharing your origin story. I just thought that, podcasts, if you're a listener, are deeply personal. You really feel like you know and understand the people that you're listening to. At least I do. So what a treat for you to share your origin story today. So thank you. But on that note, I do think that it's time that we close up shop for today, sir.
And Ms. Hersey, as always, is correct. So if you want to keep up with everything happening on the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, please follow us on social, and don't forget to check out our Patreon for bonus shows and early access.
Yes, and a big bonus for being a Patreon subscriber is that you can go ad-free. So just thought I'd throw that out there. And if you liked today's episode, leave us a quick review. Let us know what you thought.
Oh, and if you have a question or an idea for a future episode, please shoot us a message. Well, you can get me at jimhillmedia.com. And Lauren, you can get Lauren at laurenhersey.com, right?
Yes, we love hearing from you. Or send me a DM on Instagram. It's Lauren_Hersey. Anyways, that does it for today's episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on I Want That Too.